Welcome back to the Get Mellow podcast. I'm Megan, a life coach helping people break negative cycles and build a life that feels good to love. This is your weekly space to slow down, reflect, and find simple insights that create real change. Let's get into it. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who listened to the podcast last week. Everyone who shared it, who sent a message, or even if you listened and didn't do anything after that, I really appreciate it. It's been my most popular episode so far. Mum was my first guest, and I do want to do weekly guests, but I'm still just trying to find my rhythm with podcasting, so that's why I'm doing more solo at the moment. I'm also waiting to get microphones and interface and all those kind of things so that people can come to me, sit beside me on the sofa, and we can have a conversation instead of doing it over Zoom. So there'll be more guests episodes to come, and I'd imagine Mum will come back on. Maybe I will just dig into questions about her life. I did buy Mum and Dad a book 2 years ago called Tell Me Your Story. It has lots of different questions about their childhood, growing up, and about being together. So it's basically them writing a story for me, and the idea is that you give the book back as a gift. So I'm still waiting for them to put pen to paper, but hopefully that'll come eventually. And maybe, Mum, if you're listening, it'll be your sign to start writing today or this week. So on this week's episode, I'm going to speak about habits. I've been meaning to do this podcast for a few weeks, but it's been delayed every week because I was rereading Atomic Habits, which is one of the first books that changed my view on change. I think I read it about 5 years ago. That's a guess. I think it was around that time. So this week and next week is going to be all about habits. I've taken notes on the book as I've reread it, and that's what's helped me create this episode. It's funny, as I'm sitting down to write the episode, there were a couple of lines I read last night that have stuck with me. And it's about leaving your phone in another room for the first few hours of the day so you can get right into focus work. If you don't work from home, you could leave it in your car, so it's completely out of reach. The idea behind it is that to remove the temptation of lifting your phone, because it's something that we all automatically do because our phones are so addictive. For a few years now, I have been doing the first hour of the day without my phone. So having it in a different room for the first 4 or 5 hours of the day is completely different. And I haven't done it intentionally. I just woke up and I left my phone somewhere, downstairs, upstairs, I'm not sure. I always lose my phone around the house. But now I'm sitting here writing this and I feel like I've got so much more focus because I actually don't know where it is, which means I won't pick it up and start answering messages or scrolling. It might be something I continue to do moving forward. So I normally start work at 7:30. So if I could do 7:30 to 12, that's 4.5 hours of just pure focus time. I'll get into that in more detail, but it's just something I wanted to share initially as we kick things off. I take notes on a lot of books because that's how things go in my head. I can't just read something once and then leave and have it enter my brain. I almost need to read the book, take notes, and then reread my notes. It's the first time I'm actually going to be creating something from notes I've created, so bear with me. I'll move through it as best as I can. Hopefully next week's episode will be even better when I talk about the notes from the second half of the book. So Atomic Habits by James Clear starts off by talking about what atomic is. So it's an extremely small amount of a thing, the single irreducible unit of a larger system. A habit is a routine or practice performed regularly, an automatic response to a specific situation. And the backbone of the book is the 4-step model of habits. So number 1, cue, number 2, craving, and number 3, response, and number 4, reward. So I want to add from the notes that even if you have really great habits at the moment, this book is effective regardless of where you start or what you're trying to change. I've reread this book and taken so much more from it than I did the first time, which is always a nice thing. If there's a book that you've read before that really has helped you, rereading it will hit completely different because your perspective of life or your perspective on life has changed. Where you're at, what you're doing, what you're going through will all contribute to what you take from a certain book depending on the time of your life that you read it. So we always hear the phrase thrown around 1% better every day, but it really is true. And what James says in the book is that if you get 1% better for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. The same applies for missteps or bad habits. A 1% decline here and there eventually leads to a big problem. He also talks about how time magnifies the margin between success and failure. So good habits make time your friend, bad habits make time your enemy. I used to always say I didn't have time to go to the gym, or I didn't have time to meditate or journal or call my family and friends. But the problem wasn't that I didn't have the time. The problem was I didn't know how I was spending my time until I got really serious about it, about looking at exactly what I was doing day to day or hour by hour. When my habits were really poor, like binge watching Netflix would have been the thing that stole my time the most. So 10 episodes of Desperate Housewives would have just zipped by on a Saturday. And they're roughly 1 hour per episode, say. So that's literally 10 hours of my day or 10 hours of my week completely gone. And that's not me saying you can never binge watch again. But if you're doing it consistently, let's say, for example, you watch 20 hours of TV per week. Over the course of a year, that's 43 days and 16 hours. And that's exactly what James means in the book when he says that small habits can accumulate to bring about serious transformation in your life, for better or for worse. And when you're breaking a bad habit, it's hard to stick with a good habit because you have to persist with it long enough to break through the plateau of this isn't working. And we're currently living in a world where everything is instant. We want to order a takeaway so we can go on our phone and click it, and it's going to be there within 30 or 40 minutes, depending on where you're living. We want to buy something online so we don't need to go to a shop. We just order it and it's probably there within 2 or 3 days. We're looking at instant likes, instant gratification, but with good habits such as working out, it's not instant. You need to work at it long enough for it to look like this is working for me. And sometimes it's hard to have that patience when we're living in a world that doesn't require our patience anymore. He also moves on to talk about goals and forgetting about goals. But he's not saying that goals aren't important. He's saying the systems are the processes that lead to those results. So goals are still needed for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress. So an example of this would be if you wanted to work out more, so that's your goal. You want to get really specific first of all with that and say, I want to work out twice a week. And then you ask yourself, when in my week is that going to happen? So when we just put it out there and say, I want to work out twice a week, you haven't created a system to make it happen. So for example, you look over the course of your week and you think, right, Tuesday and Friday are the most likely days I can do my workout. Then you're asking, what time can I do the workout on a Tuesday and Friday? You're creating a system in place, so Tuesdays and Fridays are your workout days. Another example of this is if you clean your room once, you'll have achieved a clean room. But if you keep the same bad habits, it will get messy quicker. So the system for this would be making your bed every morning and doing a quick 10-minute reset before you start your day, or even 5 minutes. This will avoid the build-up of the room becoming messy again. So achieving a goal can sometimes be only a momentary change, and goals can also restrict happiness because the assumption behind a goal is often that once I reach my goal, I will be happy. So a goal-oriented mindset can create a yo-yo effect. I used to get stuck in this mindset so much, I nearly would have looked at it as the all or nothing mindset. My mum actually spoke about this last week in our podcast as well. I would have gone hard for 6 weeks, for example. I was off the drink, I was back in the gym, I was doing this mad transformation that people used to sell years ago. People still sell it now, but not as much. And I would have thought, once I get to the end of these 6 weeks, that's it. I almost thought I just needed to exercise and eat well for 6 weeks and then I'm just going to look great forever. And when I stopped looking at it like that and I put systems and practices and routines in place to create a lifestyle of working out and eating well as opposed to a short-term fix, that's when I became much happier. The reason why changing habits is so hard is because we try to change for the wrong thing and we try to change our habits in the wrong way. So there's 3 layers of behaviour change. Number 1 is the first layer, which is outcomes. So this is concerned with changing results like losing weight, publishing a book, and most goals are associated with this level of change. The second layer is process. This is concerned with changing your habits and systems and implementing routines such as developing a meditation practice. And the third layer is identity, which is concerned with changing your beliefs, your worldview, your judgment about yourself and others. And so outcomes, which is number 1, is about what you get. Number 2 is processes, which is about what you do. And then number 3 is the identity, which is about what you believe. So a great example he uses is imagining 2 people resisting a cigarette when offered to smoke. The first one says, I'm trying to quit. They still believe they're a smoker. The second one says, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. Small difference, but the statement signals a shift in their identity. This actually hit home for me because I'm still smoking and I've been on and off them for years, but I still say I'm trying to quit, or I've been trying to quit for years. I'm probably not quite ready to say I'm not a smoker because, well, I just love it. And for anybody that knows me, you know I'm happy with the smoke in my hand, and I don't drink anymore, but you'll always find me in the smoking area with a cigarette and a 0.0 pint, and that's me happy. It also hit home for me because last year I wanted to move full-time into my coaching business, and I was saying I'm trying to become a coach. And now I say I'm a full-time coach changing people's lives. And I started to say that before I actually went full-time into my business. I believe in myself now to do it, and I am obviously doing it in the process of it all. But that completely changed things for me, and it's completely changed my drive to work really hard for myself. True behaviour change is identity change. So the goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. So for me, it would be, the goal is not to run a business. The goal is to become a creator and somebody that builds amazing things for people. When you write each day, you embody the identity of a creative person. When you train, you embody the identity of an athletic person. So the more evidence you have for a belief, the more strongly you will believe it. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. And as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. So the 2-step process is decide the type of person you want to be. And number 2, prove it to yourself with small wins every single day. And as I read that or write that and say it out loud, the key in the sentence is small. How often do you try and change everything in your life at once, and then a couple of weeks later you fall off track because you're doing too much too soon? Starting small is key, and slow and steady really does win the race. How to build better habits. So 4 simple steps. Number 1 and 2 are the problem phase. Number 1 is cue. The cue triggers your brain to initiate a behaviour. It is a bit of information that predicts a reward. So this is about noticing the reward. Number 2 is craving. These are the motivational forces behind every habit. So you don't crave the habit itself, but the change in state that it delivers. So you're not craving smoking a cigarette. You crave the feeling of relief it provides. So craving is different from person to person. And it's about wanting the reward. And then number 3 and 4 are the solution phase. So number 3 is response. The actual habit you perform, which can take the form of a thought or an action. This is about obtaining the reward. And then number 4 is the reward, which is the end goal of every habit. So these 4 stages are best described as the feedback loop. They form an endless cycle that is run every moment you're alive. The entire process is completed in a split second, and we use it again and again without realising it has been packed into the previous moment. So let's use an example. So the cue is answering emails. The craving is that you begin to feel stressed and overwhelmed by work, and so you want to feel in control. The response is that you bite your nails, and then you satisfy your cravings. They reduce stress, and biting your nails becomes associated with answering your emails. And then the 4 laws of behaviour change. So the first law is cue, the second law is craving, the third law is response, and the fourth law is reward. So how to create a good habit? Number 1, make the cue obvious. Number 2, make the craving attractive. Number 3, make the response easy. And number 4, make the reward satisfying. And how to break a bad habit? Number 1, make the cue invisible. Number 2, make the craving unattractive. Number 3, make the response difficult. And number 4, make the reward unsatisfying. He then talks about a really great exercise, and it's called the habit scorecard, where you become aware of your behaviour and you create your own list of daily habits. So be really specific if you're going to do this. You could even pause the episode now. A great example of the list could be like, wake up, turn off your alarm, check your phone, go to the bathroom, take a shower, make your break, whatever it is, but be very specific. Once you have a full list, you could look at each behaviour and ask yourself, is it a good habit, a bad habit, or a neutral habit? Something you can add to this as well, it's not mentioned in the book, but it's called the ADE approach. And I've spoke about this in a previous podcast, I think, but I want to add it here as well. So you can look at your list then and you can ask yourself, what can I add, what can I delete, and what can I edit out of those habits? So when it comes to editing, add and delete are very clear. So what are you going to add, what are you going to delete? But when it comes to editing, for example, so if you look at the list and you think, right, I'm scrolling for 4 hours per day, but I don't want to completely remove my scrolling because it doesn't, I enjoy it a wee bit. But can I reduce that? Can I edit the habit and can I only scroll for 2 hours per day, for example? So get very specific with the ADE approach as well. And then habit stacking is a simple way to overhaul your habits. So for example, after I pour my coffee each morning, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. So you're tying your desired behaviour into something you already do each day. So I've used this just last week, when I launched my 90-day walking and talking series. So I'm recording myself for 1 minute whilst I'm out my walk, answering a question from 90 questions that I have, so I'm already doing my walk every day. So I'm stacking the habit with this new series that I want to create on Instagram to try and reach more people and to help more people. So it makes it very easy for me to do because I'm already out my walk. So then it moves on to talk about motivation is overrated and the environment often matters more. So your habits can change depending on the room you're in and the cues in front of you. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behaviour. He moves on to speak about how you design your environment for success. So when the cues that spark a habit are subtle or hidden, they're easy to ignore. For example, it's easy to not read a book when the bookshelf is in the corner of your guest room. When I first started the journal 5 years ago, I left it beside my bed so it was there in the morning for me to pick up. Now that the habit is deeply embedded into my days, it doesn't matter where the book is because I will look for it. But at the beginning, it was very important for me to leave it somewhere easy to grab. He also speaks about the context being the cue. So for example, scientists instruct insomniacs to get into bed only when they are tired. So if they can't fall asleep, they were told to sit in a different room until they became sleepy. Over time, they began to associate the context of their bed with the action of sleeping, and it became easier to fall asleep. I think this can also be applied to scrolling, for example. When we're doing so much scrolling in bed and then we wonder why we can't fall asleep, it's like we're associating scrolling with bed, and so we're being kept awake. So if you're someone that struggles to fall asleep, is it possible for you to leave your phone in another room and maybe even have an alarm clock? He then moves on to the secret to self-control. So the people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. It's easier to practice self-restraint when you don't have to use it very often. So a way to improve qualities like willpower or perseverance or grit is not by wishing you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment. So if you're continuing to feel like you're not enough when you open your social media app, stop following accounts that make you feel like that. If you're spending too much time watching TV in your bedroom, move the TV out of your bedroom, or unplug it after every watch and take the batteries out of the remote, making it harder to switch it on when you go into your room. At the weekends, I stay away from my social media apps because I spend so much time on them during the week and I need that reset. So when I close my laptop on a Friday, it also means that I'm closing Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all the social media apps. What's made this easier for me is always having my notifications turned off. So it's not tempting for me to open the app when I see a notification coming in. My notifications are still on for the likes of Messenger or WhatsApp because that's where I'm speaking with my family and friends. So if you're listening and your phone is sometimes taking so much of your attention, try and see if turning the notifications off makes a difference. So we've just gone through the first law of habit change, which is making it obvious. And in summary, to build good habits, number 1, filling out the habit scorecard to become aware of your current habits. Number 2, using implementation intention. So I will do a certain behaviour at a time and a location. Number 3, using habit stacking. So stacking the current habit with new habits. And number 4, designing your environment so the cues for good habits are obvious and visible. So hopefully I'll get the second law covered today, which is to make it attractive. So how to make a habit irresistible. Society is filled with highly engineered versions of reality that are more attractive than the world our ancestors were involved in. Social media delivers more likes and praises in a few minutes than we could ever get in the office or at home. Advertisements are created with a combination of lighting, professional makeup, Photoshop edits. Even the model doesn't look like the person in the final image. And then he moves on to talk about the dopamine-driven feedback loop. So every behaviour that is highly habit-forming, taking drugs, eating shitty food, social media, it is associated with higher levels of dopamine. And when it comes to habits, the key takeaway is this. Dopamine is released not only when you experience pleasure, but also when you anticipate it. So cocaine addicts get a surge of dopamine when they see the powder, not after they take it. It's the anticipation of reward, not the fulfillment of that gets us to take action. So we need to make our habits attractive because it is the expectation of the reward and experiences that motivates us to act in the first place. So if you want to read the news, for example, but you need to express more gratitude, you could say, after my morning coffee, I will say one thing I'm grateful for that happened. After I say one thing I'm grateful for, I will read the news. So this is known as the hair stacking and temptation bundling formula. So the formula is, number 1, after open brackets, current habit, close brackets, I will, open brackets, habit I need, close brackets. And then number 2, after open brackets, habit I need, close brackets, I will, open brackets, habit I want, close brackets. And I wanted to just share that in case you are taking notes on this podcast. So you might need to re-listen or rewind or whatever. He then moves on to speak about the role our family and friends have in shaping our habits. So we don't choose our earliest habits, we imitate them. So we follow the script handed down by our family and friends, our church, our school, our community, and society at large. Behaviours are very attractive when they help us fit in. So I feel like as Irish people, it's almost like a rite of passage to start drinking really young. That's what everybody else is doing. So at the young age of 12, 13, 14, 15, you don't really want to feel like an outsider. So it's easier to just follow the crowd. So we imitate the habits of 3 groups in particular. So number 1 is the close, so the people around us. So one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behaviour is the normal behaviour. So for me, when I left alcohol behind 4 years ago and started doing C-dips, there were so many other people doing that and I didn't even realise it, because when you're in a certain world or a certain culture, like the drinking culture, for example, all you feel like is you feel like that's the only culture. But it's not until you step outside is that you realise that there are other worlds and cultures outside of whatever culture you feel like you want to break free from, that you can become a part of if you really want to. Number 2 is the many. So whenever we are unsure how to act, we look at the group to guide our behaviour. We're constantly scanning our environment and wondering what everyone else is doing. The reward of being accepted is often greater than the reward of winning an argument, looking smart, or finding truth. And number 3 is the powerful. We're constantly wondering, what will others think of me? And that alters our behaviour based on the answer. So how do you find and fix the cause of your bad habits? So habits are all by association. So you can associate drinking alcohol with managing your stress, or you can associate going for a run with managing your stress. Desire is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be in the future. And habits are attractive when we associate them with positive feelings. And this can be used to our advantage or to our detriment. You can make hard habits more attractive if you learn to associate them with a positive experience. So sometimes all you need is a slight mindset shift. For instance, we often talk about everything we have to do in a given day. Like, we have to wake up early, we have to go to work, we have to go for a walk, we have to go to the gym. There's an easy way to change your perspective on this by saying, I get to wake up early, I get to go to the gym, I get to go to work. It's a simple substitute. The word have to creates a lot of pressure. It feels like it's something that we're obliged to do. But when you say, I get to do this, it almost feels more positive and more like a choice. Take meditation, for example. Anyone who has tried meditation for more than 3 seconds knows it can be frustrating when the distraction pops into your mind. But you can transform that frustration when you realise that each interruption gives you a chance to practice returning to your breath. You need to be distracted in order to practice meditation. I used to only associate walking with losing weight, but when I stopped associating it with that and started seeing it as a way to clear my mind, give me more energy, it became so much easier to make it a part of my daily life. Okay, I want to leave it at that because next week I want to move into the 3rd law, which is make it easy, and the 4th law, make it satisfying. I also want to make sure that I keep these episodes below 30 minutes at least, but ideally 20, and I know I've gone over that at this stage. I hope you got something from this, and I hope that if you're struggling with your habits right now, it's the first step to making changes that you've wanted to make for a while. Hopefully it makes it feel a bit easier to know that real change doesn't come from changing everything all at once. It comes from small changes over time. When we do too much and when we don't follow through on all the things we set out to do, it almost makes us feel like we're less than. When we start small and build, each time we get stronger and stronger. And when we bring in a new habit or we make it longer, for example, like if reading a book is something that you want to do every single day, don't start with a chapter every day. Start with 1 page. And in 30 days, you'll have read 30 pages. And although you don't think that's a big deal, it's better than reading no pages. And I'm going to leave it at that right now. And again, please bear with me with my editing skills and the podcast. I'm hoping it's going to get better and better as I learn each week. And if you do have any feedback, always feel free to reach out. And that's all. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. It really helps the podcast grow. And until next week, stay mellow.